Another night of drunken revelry.
I'm half rats and hellbound.
Whoa, bareback! Hell's bells! Die already! One can only guess what happened here.
Sorry, Gordon Freeman cosplay stops me from speaking at all. Anyway, as I was saying, John Lennon once said, "The best things in life are free." Ignore the rest of that quote. And when he said this, John was probably talking about Half-Life mods, because as far as free stuff goes, Half-Life mods are probably the best thing you're gonna get in this world. And yes, I am completely biased, because as a kid, I once had a horrible laptop. And when I say bad, I mean this thing was bad. If I wanted to play Team Fortress 2, it would take me several minutes to load into a match, and even if I got in, I wouldn't be playing Team Fortress 2, I'd be playing a Team Fortress 2 themed slideshow. So at the time, my gaming options were really limited to anything that was made before the early 2000s. I had to get retro, and my desperation led me to the Half-Life modding community. And let me tell you, figuring out how to install my first mod was game-changing for me. All of a sudden, I wasn't a kid who could only play Half-Life 1 and nothing else. I had hundreds of games at my fingertips, and they were all free. So needless to say, for the few years I had this laptop, I consumed a lot of Half-Life mods. But nothing ever quite hit like Half-Rats did. Half-Rats is a Half-Life 1 mod developed by Heath Games, or the individual known as Half-Rats. Yes, the developer of Half-Rats is named Half-Rats, just like the main character Half-Rats. It's very confusing. But that's not the only confusing thing, because real-life Half-Rats and fake Half-Rats even share the same band. But that's something we'll get into later when we talk about the developer himself a little bit more. So the mod takes place in Michigan in 1883, and we play as a man known as Half-Rats, who attempts to survive when horrifying creatures begin attacking Detroit, which, reading from the Half-Rats official lawbook, yes, that is a real thing. It's 28 pages long, and I printed it out, and it's made by the developer, and it's official. We can learn that Rats was the son of a wealthy ironmonger who helped build train lines all across America during the Civil War, and while Rats had a bright future ahead of him, he couldn't stomach having to exploit workers like his father did in order to run the family business. This action resulted in Rats being essentially disowned, and after his father died, Rats fell heavily into drinking and survived by being essentially a thug for hire. He might also live in the same apartment building as Booker DeWitt, I don't know.
You son of a bitch.
By the time we meet Rats in the game, he's broke, drunk, and aimless in life. And if you're wondering why this guy's name is Half-Rats, it's not actually a play on Half-Life, because Half-Rats is actually a Victoria-era slang term that means half-drunk. So Rats is such an alcoholic that people just know him by the term that describes someone that's drunk. Anyway, enough background, let's get into the story. So the mod begins as Rats is awoken to the sound of chaos outside. Mr. Trask, our landlord, calls for Rats to get his gun, and we do so heading downstairs. Reaching him, Trask explains that something bad is going down outside, and the two believe that the town might be getting invaded. Heading to the front of the shop, we're tasked with defending against anything that might try come in. However, the things that come after us aren't what Rats or Trask were expecting.
My God, what are these things?
It suddenly becomes clear that things aren't what they seem, and Rats boards up the front of the shop to give the pair some time to think. Trask then tells us to use the sewers to get out of the area and find help. So moving through the sewers, we have to fight our way through more of these monsters, and I've just got to say, I don't know if it's nostalgia or actual palpable atmosphere, but I love Gold Source Engine environments. It's just something about them. Like, you've seen those YouTube videos where people are like, source maps are so scary.
Number 7.
Man walks into the dark area on GM Construct. And I kind of agree, it's kind of freaky being in a quiet source map, but being in a quiet gold source map kind of feels just homey, you know? Is that just me?
It don't. It don't go down.
Robert, it goes down.
No, it don't.
It do go down.
Oh!
By the way, with the enemies we're fighting, yes, they're obviously just reskinned Vortigaunts and zombies, but in the Half-Rat's lore, these bear monsters, or more officially called Teddy Men, are the reanimated corpses of people killed by the Vortigaunt reskin enemy, which is called a Child of Hell. After killing somebody, the Child of Hell will sew their body into this bear suit, and voila! One horrifying abomination. It's probably not intentional, but it makes sense in my head that the Children of Hell are the ones that create the Teddy Men, and they're pretty much always seen in the same place in this mod, which I think is kind of cool. Anyway, exiting the sewers, we enter the Dwyer Stoveworks, which, fun fact, was a real place in 1800s Detroit. Once inside, we come face to face with possibly the biggest piece of shit enemy in the game, which is the first Hellborn, a reskinned Half-Life 1 assassin and a pain in the ass to fight.
Slippery little bastard.
Continuing on, we find the fabled Full Rat. We also find the exit to the Stoveworks, that's cool I guess. And we have to fight our way through a hedge maze that houses maybe the entire population of Hell, because holy crap, there are so many enemies in this area. There were enough enemies that I did not have enough ammo to kill them all, so believe me when I say that this is possibly one of the most stressful gaming experiences I have ever had. And the fact that about 70 sounds were playing over the top of each other all at once did not ease me. Exiting the maze, we find ourselves at a place called the Dwyer House. According to Rats, this place has been abandoned for a year and has more than a few strange rumors surrounding it. Another fun fact, this house, like the Dwyer Stoveworks, was also based on a real place in Michigan called the Bruce House, which is also apparently a hotspot for paranormal activity. Heading inside, we can find a Teddy Man playing the piano and a whole heap of dead people. It's clear that this place was not as abandoned as it seemed. Going upstairs, we're nearly shot by an army private that introduces himself as Barnaby, and after making allies with the guy, we escape the mansion, deciding to go back to Mr. Trask's shop. After a bit more shooting, we're separated from Barnaby when he thinks he sees one of his fallen squad mates, and he runs off with Rats giving chase. Eventually, our pursuit leads us to a church, and heading inside, this scene plays out.
What is this? Hell's bells!
This is the Behemoth, and according to the lore book, it's an amalgamation of the worst spirits out there. Politicians, dictators, that kind of thing. And man, it's relentless. Since we arrived back in Detroit with about a minute to ourselves before it shows up again.
He just hanging out.
But doing what all survivors do well, we run and manage to evade it, making it to this square. Fun fact about me, there is usually a single instance in a game that makes me want to make a video about it. A single moment that just ties all the previous experiences I had in a game and kind of turns it into one big memory block that tells my brain,
Damn! That shit good!
And for Half-Rats, I came across that moment right here in this square. The shots and howls that you can hear from afar just tell you that even in this world where buildings are made of blocks and the sky is a flat texture not 20 meters away from you, this world really is under attack and things aren't looking good. Anyway, escaping the square, we make it back to Trask's shop, and when calling out for him to let us in, it's Barnaby that answers our call. Barnaby explains that he went off chasing someone he knew into the woods that had gone missing before any of this had started.
He was an odd fellow. I seem to remember him carrying some sort of pendant near to his heart. He was plenty careful to keep it hidden most times, but I caught a gander once. Something about him always seemed off.
He also explains that he was knocked out sometime after running off and woke up with a strange mark, but before Rats can ask him what he means, Trask comes out from the back area and the three devise a plan to escape Detroit via the train station. So altogether we fight our way through a couple dozen enemies and eventually make it to the train yard where a military supply train is waiting. Trask boards to get the train going and we begin a defense sequence where we can use the weaponry on the train against the hordes of demons. After we defeat the waves, the Behemoth shows up again and Barnaby less sacrifices himself and more stupidly gets himself killed, leaving us to face the monster ourselves.
No.
Barnaby!
Finding an army cannon, we're able to kill it as Trask gets the train going. Once on the train, everything seems like it's going to be fine until it starts being boarded by teddy men, and after mowing them down, Trask and Rats escape to safety with the mod coming to an end. Wait, that's not right.
Sweet babe Jesus.
Oh my God!
According to the lore book, this is something called the Hellmouth, and it's nothing crazy, just the living embodiment of the gateway to hell. And yeah, I do say that as a joke, because an abstract concept coming to kill you is not something that happens every day. But the other side of the joke is that the forces of hell tried to invade a late 1800s United States, and somehow they didn't take into account that they might run into some good old-fashioned American heavy weaponry. Anyway, sending a patriotic fuck you to the gates of hell itself, the abomination seems to get the message and dies. Next thing we know, we wake up in Rat's room. It's day outside. It was all a dream. A fever dream, eh? Heading out the door, the walls are suddenly covered in meat, and going downstairs, we come face to face with Trask and another man. Trask tells Rats that he has excelled in handling the events of the previous night and describes it as a kind of test. He introduces the strange-looking man as Mr. C and explains that he's been working with Mr. C to essentially bring about hell on earth, with the church being their meeting place and the Dwyer being an origin point for all of this madness. Trask offers Rats the opportunity to work alongside him and tells him that he'll be keeping Rats here until he makes a decision. Dropping one final pearl of information, Trask also tells Rats that Barnaby was not part of the test, and that the strange mark Barnaby was talking about earlier is their way of keeping track of how many duplicates there are of him. Rats then faints and the mod ends, leaving us to wonder,
what happened?
it's all probably explained in the sequel to this mod, Half Rat's Parasomnia, but in the spirit of staying focused, I'm not going to talk about that. So with the title of the video, why do I think that Half Rats is Half-Life 1 modding at its gold standard? I mean, in a world where Half-Life echoes and Cry of Fear exist, what exactly does Half Rats have that they don't? Well, the answer is nothing. To me, Half-Life modding is something special. It's often the first experience people have with game design. And why wouldn't you? The appeal is definitely there. You have a fully functioning first-person shooter with the tools readily available to you to convert it into something that is utterly your own. And I think that anyone that's able to take these tools and really make something deserves the respect. Because when you're playing this mod, you're not playing some AAA game, some publisher-backed mega project. This is something that someone thought would be cool to make, and they took their time and put in their creative energy into making it. This is why I love Half-Life mods so much, because when I throw myself into them, even with the graphics and sometimes questionable writing, you can just feel the atmosphere that the developer crafted. But also there's something even behind that. You can feel the intention and passion, and that's what makes Half-Rats so great. That's what makes any Half-Life 1 mod great. So Half-Rats is the gold standard, but every other mod is the gold standard too, in its own way. And honestly, what I'm saying might not make any sense to you, so I'm urging you to go play some Half-Life mods and just see what I mean. But Brandos, I don't care about your pseudo-philosophical take on Half-Life mods. I want to know more about Half-Rats. Well, my trusty strawman heckler, if that's what you want, then maybe you're on the wrong channel. Maybe you should switch it over and go watch 20 questions with Half-Rats, because I don't have any of the answers for you. Hello and welcome to 20 Questions with Half-Rats, the show where we ask Half-Rats, the creator of the Half-Life 1 mod, Half-Rats, questions about the mod Half-Rats, and sometimes the man Half-Rats, and sometimes the in-game character Half-Rats. And before we get started, please stop sending in letters asking if my desk is made of boxes and a weekly planner and is weighed down by 2.5 kilogram weights, because it's not, and I find it kind of unfunny. Half-Rats, thanks for taking time out of your Trask-imposed purgatory to come on the show.
Now, you do know I'm not actually the video game character, right?
Yeah, I knew that. Okay. I knew that. So, what brought about the original idea for Half Rats A Fever Dream? You mentioned in the bestiary that it was created on a whim, but were there any influences that went into the original light bulb coming to take shape, I guess?
Half Rats A Fever Dream was meant to be a proof of concept for the character Half Rats. I wanted to use it to drum up awareness in order to get help for the Unreal project, because at the time my knowledge was limited. And I mean, what better way to advertise a project than just coming out with this quick sort of tech demo, what have you, that just states, hey, I'm here, this is what I got, right? And I mean, the mods were never meant to be canonical to the story, the actual storyline, which is completed and out now, by the way, if you're interested.
Does Half Rats have a real name, and does he remember it?
Half Rat's real name is Richard Elson.
What's Half Rat's favorite whiskey?
His favorite drink to imbibe has always been bourbon. But he'll drink pretty much anything. He's a lush. He's an alcoholic. He's just like me.
What spurred you to incorporate so much true Michigan history into Half Rats? For example, you have the Bruce Mansion, which is also the Dwyer house in Half Rats, and then you have the Dwyer Stoveworks, which was the Detroit Stoveworks in real life. And then even in the bestiary, you mentioned that Trask belongs to a family that was actually real in the Michigan 1800s in the area of Detroit. What kind of led you to bring that into the game and incorporating all that history into the kind of lore?
Since Half Rats was my stage persona, and I being a native to Michigan, it just kind of made sense. It was a lot of the things that I put in, a lot of the landmarks, like the Bruce Mansion, they were just a nod to where I came from, and it just helped kind of solidify that this guy is from Michigan, and which is no longer the case. I have since moved very far away from Michigan. Maybe that helped divest myself from the character a little bit and start living a normal life again. As for Trask, I had an old recipe book, but they were called receipt books back then, from, I forgot what it was, 1897? But I saw an advertisement in there for Trask's magnetic ointment. So, Trask is of that family, canonically, and in the mods.
Where does the game Half Rats end and the real Half Rats begin? Because Half Rats isn't just a game character to you, it's also a kind of persona you play in your band, and they're kind of very similar characters. So are they meant to be the kind of same person, or is it a case of you building off of your personality a character and then putting him in different scenarios?
Half Rats, the character himself, I had prototyped since 2013. He basically was to be my stage persona for my then musical project that I had going on. I wanted to really expand his backstory in a way that most musicians at the time wouldn't have dared to, basically. So by early 2014, I had this rudimentary story for this really rough character, this gentleman rogue who was wrapped up in the supernatural. That was the first iteration of Half Rats. But then I found myself rather unsatisfied with the story. I thought the first iteration was actually pretty fucking stupid. So I kind of went back. I stuck with the character, of course, and the general concept, but it just kept evolving. And as stated before, it became its own thing. I wanted to make it a game. I wanted it to be an interactive experience. I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could play a video game and experience it through the eyes of someone that you can see on stage? I mean, maybe it's a little bit egocentric, but I thought at the time, hey, if it's a character I'm playing and it's not really me, but based off of me, it wouldn't be an ego trip. It would just be, and if I did a good enough job, it would be fun for everyone. But it wasn't. It just got to be a little much and kind of evolved into its own thing. And I got really absorbed into the character. So what started off as a way for me to augment my stage performance ended up just running away from me, and I got lost in the character for years. You could say he was my alter ego, because, I mean, that was supposed to be what he was. But, you know, as the years dragged on and I was working on games and mods, in the background I was always working on the true story of Half Rats in hopes that someday I could bring it to life. So basically, to finally answer your question, there's no real difference between the stage Half Rats and the game Half Rats. Since the mods are non-canonical and meant to be Half Rats dreams, I guess you could say they're related, but they're not the same Half Rats. It's a dream version of Half Rats that he's having while he's passed out drunk. So yeah. Now for the mods, inspiration for that, besides Half Rats himself, it's a no-brainer. It's nostalgia. I wanted to create a mod that was reminiscent of They Hunger, and my skills as a mapper at the time just kind of worked out for that. You know, the low definition, blocky geometry, just nostalgia, right? Just the early days of Half-Life modding, and it came at the right place at the right time.
Was the story of Half Rats planned out from the very beginning, from like the first mod, the get-go?
The story was and wasn't planned out from the start. Like I stated before, there was this rudimentary sort of trunk, and I just kept branching off from there and rearranging everything, and it actually wasn't until recently that everything kind of came together. And it took a very long time and a lot of trials and tribulations.
So, A Fever Dream released around 2015. Why did you go with Gold Source to develop with instead of the Source engine, especially since Source is just more popular in general to develop with these days?
Well, Gold Source was what I had the most experience with. I used to mod back in 2000, 2001, when it was still Worldcraft. And I thought, years later, let's return to it because Unreal is kicking my ass. I don't have the manpower. I don't have the knowledge. The scope of this project is way too much. Let's do something fun. Let's do something I know how to do and bring some light to this character, this world, in a sort of a brand new story. Same character, but let's introduce him in a way that's going to catch some, turn some heads here.
What does the future of Half Rats look like to you, as in the character and the person/persona?
Well, the future for Half Rats the character, I don't want to spoil anything, but I'll just leave it like this. He became time itself. So, I can't comprehend what that looks like with my puny human brain. But the actual human being, i.e. me, it's been a rough 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, I can't remember. But I've got a lot of really good things in my life. And if I survive long enough, then I'm guessing the future will be very bright. To put things into context, I have a loving wife. She's very supportive. She's hot. And I stretch that ring every chance I get. I have an awesome son. He's going to be 2 here very soon. And though I'm mentally and financially struggling, well, what's new there, right? So, looking at the bright sides.
All right. I think it's time we get down to the real questions. How about you tell us about Mr. C? What's his deal, huh?
I wouldn't say his name. He's got a habit of showing up every time you do.
What? Hello? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like the forces of hell are invading my Earth. So, this looks like it might be the last episode of 20 Questions with Half Rats. In conclusion, I think that Half Rats is a pretty cool guy, a very driven individual, and... Of course I am. The end of the world isn't going to stop me from finishing up a YouTube video, you know? I mean, what are you going to do to stop me? Huh? You big freak? Hello everybody, thank you for watching the video. It is 11:46. I've just finished editing the video and I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'd just like to take this second to thank you for watching the video. It means a lot that you would sit through 30 minutes plus of my stuff. I also want to thank Half Rats. This video would not be as good as it was if it wasn't for him agreeing to do the interview and just being a good sport. It was hard to kind of coordinate with him, considering we're like probably on complete opposite sides of the globe. So, but he made the effort, he got it done, and it was fucking awesome talking to him. Please go play Half Rats: A Fever Dream and Parasomnia, and check out his other stuff. So Half Rats has a ton of stuff going on right now. He has his old band Ague, which he used the Half Rats persona in back in the day. There's still music all over the internet for that. And then he currently has a new band called Arsenic Tea Party, and they actually do have music everywhere still, as well as Ague. Half Rats is working on a new mod called Redridge, and I played through the demo and it's really good. You get that nostalgia feeling, and it's also connected to Half Rats. You play as a descendant to Half Rats, is what Half Rats told me. So it's really good, and keep an eye out for that. And just check out all of his other stuff. I think one of the cool things about Half Rats is how he's not just a modder, he's an artist, not to blow smoke, but he's an artist with many different mediums. So, he has different fingers in different pies, and just check him out because he's giving it a good shot at all of them. Anyway, thank you for letting me interview you. I know you're watching, so cheers for that. As you can see, these boxes behind me, some big life updates are going on right now. That's why this video has kind of been a little delayed, in regards to my usual timetable. I'm moving in with one of my really good friends. So we just got a lease, we've signed it, and we're moving in this weekend. So things have been a little hectic. I'm packing up. So, this is the last time you're gonna see this background in a video. It was all right.
Oh, goodbye. It's been educational.